And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another exhilarating episode of Traveling Through the 80s with the 80s Kids. Once, as always, I am Rich Oliver, your host, with my co-host, Kyle Lentz.
Hello, hello. Welcome
And
back.
always, Don Brown follows us into the back door.
Yeah, well, I don't know about always, but yeah, I'm here 80% of the time. I might doze off here and there, but 80% of the time I am with you.
Yeah, taking a little nap, sneaking in to take a nap. It's all
That's okay. That's okay. All right. Well, and Kyle, so what do we have going on this week?
We have another exciting spotlight episode this week. So today we are joined by a very special guest. For those of us 80s kids, we'll remember him from one of the most beloved sitcoms of that time. We have with us from Growing Pains, Jeremy Miller. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
Thank you guys for having me on.
We're psyched to have you here. We're psyched to have you. This is a lot of fun. So we have you here to talk a little about your career and what you've been up to. We're also here to help promote a special event that you'll be participating in the coming weeks. If you want to get started, we can share a little about that. That upcoming event at the film festival coming up.
That's right. So we have the Bedford International Film Festival coming up in Bedford, Virginia. Absolutely wonderful organization. I got hooked up with them about 4 or 5 years ago, and they basically are trying to give artists who are in areas that don't normally get seen, that don't normally get a lot of attention. They're trying to give them an opportunity to be seen, to express their art, to get their work out there. But they're also trying to raise money so that they can do more workshops, seminars, and things like that, so that these artists can kind of learn more, hone their craft. And I just love that. So they get submissions from all over different parts of the country that, you don't have a large production, community in. And internationally, I think they've had Australia and Ireland and I think New Zealand, South Africa. So we get a lot of submissions, and I really enjoy being a part of it.
Oh,
so
excellent.
What we're going to be doing actually is, on top of the festival, we're kicking it off on Thursday, the 28th of June, with one of my cooking classes.
Oh, coming
Basically,
right up.
Excellent. It's a cooking class party style thing. I guess if you want to compare it to anything, I don't know if you remember the old Emerald Live show.
Yes,
he would
absolutely.
stand there at the counter with a group of 6 to 8 people around him. And I'm going to teach them like 3-4 different dishes. And then there'll also be an audience as well, for as many who buy tickets. And the VIPs who are sitting around the table, those are VIP tickets, are actually going to be a part of the class with me. They're going to get to eat the food that I'm cooking and the actual recipes that I'm teaching them. The other people are going to get to eat the same menu, but it will be prepared by the catering group that we're working with, who owns the venue we're at, which is Blackwater Creek Catering.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now you sit on the panel, and do you get to judge any of the films or anything like that that come through?
I actually don't sit on the judging panel. I will be doing, I believe, 1 or 2 of the panels, the Q&A panels.
Oh, cool.
I do that each time I've been there, but otherwise I'll be there for the kickoff event, and then for the whole weekend I'll be doing signings and, like I said, doing the panels and Q&As.
Awesome.
Oh, nice.
Sounds like it'll be a lot of fun. So if
It's going
anybody's
to be
in
a
that
blast.
area,
We've got some really fun. We got some really fun guests who are coming. My friend, very dear friend, Claudia Wells, who was in the original Back to the Future.
Mhm.
And also my very good friend, Max Adler, who is a wonderful actor who was on Glee, and he's been on Blue Bloods, and he's got an IMDb list up and down.
Yeah.
But he's going to be there signing as well and doing some of the Q&A panels. So it's going to be a great time if you're in the area. And I mean in the area, we have people coming from Washington, D.C. We have a couple people coming down from Philadelphia. But if you're in the area, grab a ticket and come on out, because it's going to be a ball, and it's supporting a great cause.
Sounds great.
Incredible, yeah.
Wonderful event. So now you're doing Q&A panels. So what kind of Q&A panels did you do? Did you talk about your career?
Actually haven't been given the format of what we're going to be addressing this year. In past years, we've done, child stars, dealing with, growing up in the business. We've done, professionalism on set. I mean, all those different types of things that might apply to a young actor on
Sure.
set. But also we've done ones where they've asked me to sit in talking about writing and directing because they want the actor's point of view on that.
Right. That's great.
So it sounds like it's a little more professional based, just more than just fan people sitting there.
It's honestly everything. It depends on how many people we would get, or if there were multiple people related to each project. Those are just ones I've done in the past, but I know they had wanted to get together like a group of 80 stars and then just do a fan Q&A and that kind of stuff.
Oh, nice.
So I know they're planning those ones as well.
Cool.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we'll backpedal a little bit. Let's talk a little about yourself. Now, you got into the acting pretty early. Obviously, you started as Ben Seaver on Growing Pains. That was a big spotlight of your career. Now, how did you get involved in acting? What was it that led you down that path? Like, what's that? I got to be in this business.
Your luck and not knowing any better, truthfully, my family was never involved in the entertainment industry in any way, shape, or form. My mom put me in singing classes when I was very young. I think I was only like 3 years old, maybe 3.5. I loved to sing when I was young. It was at a place called Mickey Rooney's Talent Town. Oh. And Mickey Rooney owned a few of these little places that basically kids could come and learn anything in entertainment they wanted: singing, dancing, comedy, acting. And one of the teachers who taught different things kind of took my mom aside when I was around 4.5, 5 years old and said, "Have you ever thought about putting him on TV? He's got the personality for it. He definitely never shuts up." And, my mom tells the story that at that point in time, I would walk around the house reciting lines from Brady Bunch and Chips and Hulk and all the other shows that I watched back then.
Yeah.
So she
sounds familiar. Sounds very familiar.
Yeah. She's like, maybe this might work. So it was as simple as this. She sat me down in the car one day. I think she had picked me up from school, and she said, "What would you think about, being like one of those kids on TV?" I'm like 5. I was like, "Oh, that sounds fun." And that was as simple as it was.
Cool. So what was one of the first acting gigs that you actually landed when you started auditioning?
I booked a McDonald's commercial in my first 10 auditions. So of course we're thinking, hey, this is no problem. This is easy.
Sure.
Right.
And funny thing about this commercial is it was me, Jaleel White, Brandon Call, R.J. Williams, and I cannot remember the other kids' names. But again, everybody knows Jaleel Urkel from Family Matters.
Yeah.
Brandon Call was a 80s, 90s kid, Step by Step. R.J. Williams had like 3 or 4 different pilots that all went maybe half a season to a season, but he was a really good young actor in my age range. It was all of us at like 5.5 years old doing a McDonald's commercial together.
Oh, wow. That's
nice.
Cool.
So yeah, that was my first gig. And then I didn't book anything for about the next 2 years solid, over 400 auditions.
That's like the Backstreet Boys of McDonald's commercials.
Yeah, right.
There, you know what I mean? Like
that's a good way to put it.
I kind of compared it to Outsiders when I was younger.
There you go.
There
you go. Perfect. Yeah. Like all these like budding young talents ready to pop, and it's like right in that moment. That's cool.
I don't know what casting director that was, but they probably got a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully they still have a pretty good career doing that as well.
So what was the jump from the McDonald's? How did you get from, was that just someone saw you in that and that's how you kind of got cast in that guest role in Punky Brewster?
No, it actually was quite a while before I started booking anything. Even from the beginning, it always seemed to come down. I always got a call back. I always got to producers or to that 3rd or 4th step. It always seemed to get down to me and like 2 or 3 other kids, and I just wasn't booking anything.
So let me ask you this quick. So you, during this time, it's a long period, you're going to school like a normal kid. And then your mom would be like, come on, we got to go in the middle of the day, go to this audition or something.
Oh, that was every day. I mean, from the time we decided to do this and got an agent, my day consisted of get up, go to school. As soon as mom picked me up from school and my little brother, because he was doing it too, we would get in the car and go straight into Hollywood or Venice or Santa Monica or wherever we had to be to do auditions.
So it was all after school. There's no
all after school.
Oh, okay.
Between the hours of like 2 o'clock and 5 or 6. You didn't usually have anything after that.
Sure.
And then we had to commute all the way back home, do any homework you had, which at that age at first wasn't much, and then go to bed, rinse and repeat. It was a very, very busy schedule.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So not the easy road that a lot of people think happens.
Getting a stat, not always. I mean, I've seen it happen, that absolute spark of instant, I've seen it happen. James Marsden, who played, Cyclops and X-Man and The Notebook and everything else, was a very good friend of mine. And when he packed every last thing he had in his little car and moved out from Oklahoma, he lived in my back house at first. And within 6 months of having moved in, he had an agent. He had booked a TV show on the WB network. He started booking movies. 6 months out of the gate, he was rolling. But that is really, really rare.
Right. And you're like, you do have to pay me something for that back house now. Yeah.
Here's his bill for the back room.
He was paying rent. He also was a great guy. We had
That's a good story, though. That's a nice story to hear.
Yeah, that's cool. It's good.
It's definitely not the easy road people think it is. And as a kid, you give up an awful lot. But luckily, I enjoyed doing it. And
so the auditions were actually enjoyable to go to and kind of.
It was to a degree. I enjoyed spending time with my brother and my mom, even if it was in the car in traffic. Like any other kids, especially back then, we'd always play different, car games, spot this, all sorts of different stuff. And I enjoyed that time. I always enjoyed the family time. The auditions themselves were great at first because I was too young to know any better. Later on, they got a lot tougher because my anxiety started to rear its head.
Oh, yeah.
And I've dealt with the anxiety disorder for a long time, but in the 80s, nobody knew what the heck that was.
Right.
It was difficult, but I enjoyed it. It was a tough life, but I enjoyed it. You could look back and pick it apart, but I had a ball.
Yeah, that's all that matters to it. As long as you can look back and fondly remember those times and say, okay, that was enjoyable, then it was worth it.
And I'll tell you, it was always my choice. Until the contracts were signed, then there was no way out.
Right. True that.
But my mom always made it very clear that this was up to me. If I didn't want to do this anymore, it was my choice, and to let her know. My younger brother Josh, who did a lot of work, actually, a lot of guest spots, did a couple movies, always bit parts and co-starring roles and things like that. But he did a lot of work as a kid, and around 10, 11 years old, I think it was, he just kind of said to my mom, I don't want to do this anymore. I really just want to be a kid. I want to play ball. I want to go to school with my friends. I don't like the process.
That's nice to hear, though.
And my mom,
some people just say, I just want to go outside, hang out. I don't, so.
But the moms are like, no.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, it happens. Believe me, I knew plenty of those type of parents in this business, but my mom wasn't one of them. So my little brother left the business and went about his life and enjoyed it, and it was never an issue. So I always knew it was my choice, but the thing is, I never thought about it. I always loved it.
So what led you to getting the role of Ben Seaver on Growing Pains? What was it that kind of
everything kind of snowballed for me when I started booking. I'll tell this story very quickly, but my mom sat me down after this 400 and something audition and not booking anything and said, "Hun, I don't know how long we can keep doing this. We money wise, we don't have it. I mean, we were getting help from our church's food bank. We were really struggling." And she said, if we can't do something in the next 2 months, we're going to have to stop. And I don't know if you guys are, people who pray, but I started praying, my mom started praying, and I'm not joking, within weeks, I started booking every last thing I went out on.
Wow.
Right.
Well,
Nice.
Punky Brewster, Different Strokes, Charles in Charge,
Mm.
Pryor's Place, which was a great
Yes.
Saturday morning
Yes,
variety show. Richard Pryor
Yeah,
did.
We
Kids.
talked about that before. Yeah.
we did.
No.
We did.
No, I'm glad you guys remember. Nobody ever
Yes.
remembers.
Yeah. We've talked at length, and that's not great, Jeremy, about this whole process.
Yes.
So I just started booking everything, and I got a TV movie with Barry Bostwick and Stephanie Powers called Deceptions. We got to go to London and film. I actually filmed at the legendary Pinewood Studios, where they film, just about everything of note.
Star Wars,
So,
Indiana Jones, everything. Yeah.
so it was basically prayers of positivity.
Well, that's what I believe.
And
honestly,
then you put it out in the universe, and it came back to you. So that's awesome.
It happened, and it just all started clicking. So when I got the audition for Growing Pains, I don't even remember reading the lines, honestly. The producers tell the story that they gave it to me because I came in and did jokes and dolphin calls. I had a high voice at the time, and I could do dolphin squeals. But what they liked was that I was a normal kid, that I was able to just be loose and be real. And that's why I got hired. And that's the truth.
And that comes across on the screen very much so.
They did, and they liked that. I had already shown a little bit of in an absolutely awful film I did called Emanon. Just awful. But I did get a really good review in the LA Times for my performance in it. And me and one other actor had gotten called out by name, and they said these were the two bright spots in this film. Keep an eye out for them.
What is that? What was that film again? Just to refer.
Oh Lord, it's called Emanon.
Emanon.
It is
I'm not familiar with it, so
spelled backwards.
Okay, clever. Now, what was the plot of that, if you recall?
The plot is, I am the young heir to a fashion fortune. My father has died. My coke-addicted mother is inherited the company and running it into the ground. And when I'm not with my tutors, my favorite thing to do is ride around in my limousine and watch all the homeless people on the streets.
Interesting.
And that's not Hollywood Gold. That story.
Well, you haven't heard the best part yet.
Keep it going. Let's hear that.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Jeremy. This just got dark. Okay. I thought you were gonna say like my name, and I was a little kid and I played with things. No, my coke addicted mother.
Yes.
Come on, what's going on, Jeremy?
Here's the best part. I spot a homeless man who performs a miracle, and we spend the whole film deciding and battling back and forth over different things of whether this is the second coming of Christ or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is.
Was this theatrical or was this TV?
It was a theatrical release.
Okay. I'm gonna look for this.
It was in one theater for one day.
Yes.
And it sold out one time when me and my family bought out all the 50 tickets.
Oh, okay. Well played, sir. Well
Excellent.
played. I was like, wow. I'm like, cool. How do you go from sold out to nothing? But played.
Now there you go. Awesome.
It was bad news.
But at least you got the review.
I got to say, for me as a kid, it was fun to do. It was my first film. I enjoyed the process. I believe, even if the film didn't come out great, that's where I really found my love for the process of filmmaking and actually working. It wasn't just, I'm here and I'm having fun and doing a game. I got to watch everything and start really paying attention, and I kind of fell in love with it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, but you got the review from that kind of paid off at least, right? So it leads you.
Absolutely did. And, as soon as Growing Pains started, that it just snowballed again. I booked 2 different shows. I don't know if you remember, there was a show called Fathers and Sons with Merlin Olsen.
I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Merlin Olsen from Little House.
Yes, I believe it was on for 2 seasons. I booked both of those actually at the same time. I had gone out for the interviews like days apart, and I booked them both. But before, well, I was asked to screen test, which means you've basically booked it unless you screw it up completely. But I don't know if this has changed. You used to have to choose before you screen tested.
Okay.
And
You had to pick which one of those.
Which one you wanted to do, yeah.
Right.
And my agents and everybody else who knew wanted us to take Fathers and Sons.
Mm.
Merlin Olsen was a bigger name at the time. NBC was the hot network.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Alan had just come off of, as he liked to said, proving that no one could beat Johnny Carson at late night. So his name wasn't exactly, at the top of the list at that point.
Right.
Everybody wanted us to take that, but my mom and my grandmother just had a feeling, and they said we should take the Growing Pains part.
Spot on pick right there.
Said it just rolled from there.
Yeah.
Well, thank
for
God
sure.
for their advice.
I mean,
Jesus,
and 7 seasons strong. I mean, you definitely ran for quite a run. So that's for sure.
It was a
the
great
better
run,
choice.
and it was an awesome time. I mean, I know a lot of people have their negative set experiences or toxic environments. Ours was awesome. I mean, we had a really, really wonderful time. And I've always said it was like a 200-person family. I mean, the crew, the cast, we knew our grips and our lighting guys and our cameramen's kids' names. I mean, we were all that.
Oh, I love that.
And they stuck around for the run of the series. You had the same crew.
Most of it,
essentially.
Our core crew. We did have a couple of cameramen who rotated out after about 4 years or so. Here and there, a lighting guy or two, a sound guy, but for the most part, it was our core crew for the whole time.
I mean, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
very impressive.
And I'm sure
you loves family,
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've got a ton of great stories. Is there one particular moment from that entire series that sticks out of like, I'm glad I was there. I'm glad I was a part of it. Just something that, is that a fond memory from the show that just sticks out?
There's 2 in particular. The first one is, and it honestly, it's going to sound like it's only because we went to Hawaii, but it was the Hawaii episode.
Every sitcom in the 80s at one point went to Hawaii. It's true. But that's cool.
The really fun part wasn't exactly that we were in Hawaii. It was that our families all came with us. So Kirk's whole family, my whole family, my Tracy's whole family, Joanne and Alan brought their kids. The director brought his kids. The 2 producers who came brought their kids.
Cool.
I would hope so. If I was part of a family and you guys went and I didn't get to go, I'd be pissed. I got to go for work for 2 weeks. Don't worry about it.
He's out.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of them would be married after that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we just had a ball. It was like, we were supposed to film for, I think, 2 weeks. We got it in the can in 10 days, and we stayed for a total of 3 weeks. So we had a wonderful vacation and just got to spend time together.
Absolutely.
A
lot of fun then. Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's on the ticket of the studio, which makes it even more fun.
Not the extra time.
Right.
Warner Brothers wasn't quite that generous.
Right. No,
So
that's
now-
great.
The second one, real quick, that was just simply the episode Kirk and I did where we were going out to find glue, and we chased Jenny Garth and the girls around in their car trying to find paste.
It was
That
like
again
Mike
was
and Ben's Excellent Adventure.
exactly.
Yeah.
Again, that was just us out. We were filming late at night, so I was an insomniac anyway, so it worked for me. But our nights were starting at like 10:30, and we were filming straight through till sunrise.
Yeah.
And we filmed on the Warner lot, and we filmed on Ventura Boulevard, and we were on location. But it was just me and Kirk having fun and palling around, being brothers.
Right.
Jenny was incredibly sweet, and so were the other 2 girls who I can never remember their names, unfortunately, and I feel like a jerk. But I knew Jenny longer.
Well, probably Jenny Garth's probably the only one to worry about.
Well, I knew Jenny, and I knew her well, over the years. She was a good friend, but that was again just it was us getting to be together, be kids, and have fun while filming. That really stood out as special.
That's
good.
awesome.
And the interesting thing too is Growing Pains helped to introduce the world to a lot of famous actors. Brad Pitt, You got to see him in there. Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, that's a pretty impressive
Heather
launching
Graham.
pad.
Oh,
Yes.
that's right. Yeah.
Heather Graham. Yeah.
We had a lot of very big names come through and
Yeah.
a lot of younger talent that did go on to
yeah.
really kind of blow up. Also, Dennis Haysbert, who, you know, went on to do 24 and do
Yes.
Passion Fish with Michelle Pfeiffer, and just an awesome actor. He was, and I just so horrible. He was, as in all, if in the white comedies, you had the black cop. In Cosby Show, you had the white cop.
Mm.
Well, that was the black cop on Growing Pains.
Right.
And he went on to do incredible stuff. We
yeah.
had great casting directors. They really knew talent, and they brought through some wonderful, wonderful people.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Hillary Swank,
Yep. Hillary Swank. Absolutely.
you know,
I mean, you could say we launched the career of many Oscar winners through that show.
I personally never say that, but I do say it was an honor getting to work with all of them. And I'm very lucky that all of them, I can say honestly, were great to work with. They were fun people, they were nice people, and all of them treated me great.
And that's wonderful. And though it's those memories and those moments that you connected with them at that time, you know, was probably what brings those memories even more, you know, close to the heart.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, so you've picked a couple moments. Are those moments that you pick, like the Kirk Cameron episode, was that one of your favorite episodes of the series, or was there one in particular that you would say that one that stands out as my favorite?
My favorite episode of the whole series is the Sandy dies in a drunk driving accident.
Yes, Matthew Perry.
Matthew Perry and Tracy, one of her more brilliant performances.
Mm-hmm.
I still do not know why they didn't at least nominate her, except that we didn't get a lot of support from our network. Anyway, beyond that, that's my favorite overall episode.
Yeah.
My favorite episode that was kind of a Ben episode was the episode where Chrissy is born, and I got to have the interactions with the older gentleman, Chris.
Yes.
That was one of my favorite ones to do because Ben got to get a little emotional, you know, shed a tear, do the whole, and I really enjoyed that because I can get a lot of those opportunities. I was you know, funny goofball brother. So.
Yes,
right.
Yeah. One episode that always stood out that was a Ben centric episode was the one where you were having the appendectomy, I believe, and you like your spirit sneaked out of the hospital, and you know that was always a fun.
Do you remember who the guest star was on that took my place?
Oh geez, yes. I can't remember the name, but yes, I could see the face.
Danny Cooksey from Different Strokes.
Right. Danny Cooksey, yes, that's right. And I remember, at the point where he towards the end, he noticed you, you know, and he would recognize or hear your voice while everyone else couldn't see you. I thought, that was a great episode.
That was a fun one to do. We all had a blast doing that one, as well as in the later season, we kind of revisited that breaking the third wall type thing where I had the dream that I was in a TV show. And we broke the fourth wall and we did all that. That was another just kind of zany, fun one to do.
Yeah, a lot of, I mean, that show had, again, is speaking of more guest stars, Gordon Jump was another regular guest star who was, you always loved him from WKRP. And here he was playing a role in there. That must have been fun to work with him as well.
Gordon was awesome. He was very fun, and he was very grandfatherly like. I mean, he treated us kind of like a grandfather would, and like to mess with us and play with us, and very cool guy. The only problem was it would take a long time to shoot scenes with him because
of that.
He could not remember his lines by the time I mean, he was getting up there in age, and I'm not being mean to him at all, but he had a real hard time remembering his lines. So a lot of times he would kind of improvise it and just go, and so you'd have to go with it. And a lot of times it would work, and it'd be even funnier.
So while you were just shooting your show, you're right, you guys were shooting on the Warner Brothers lot. Were there other shows that were shooting nearby that you would kind of maybe go over to see what they were doing, or kind of mingle with their casts and things like that?
Well, from the second season on, we were actually on the Warner Brothers ranch, which is kind of a separate lot than the main Warner Brothers lot. And at first we had it to ourselves. There was only 2 sound stages on the entire lot,
And
we
this
were
is
the only.
farther removed from, like, how far?
It's half a mile,
Oh,
3/4 of a mile, but you do have to
Gotcha.
go down. They're not connected in any way.
Okay.
But yeah, we basically had it to ourselves, and we shared it with a few movies because they did location filming there. The Lethal Weapon films,
Cool.
Christmas Vacation,
Awesome.
Karate Kid, you
Mhm.
know, a bunch of different ones.
Just
were
because the
filmed
way
on-
the neighborhood looked.
Well, they had multiple neighborhoods, and they had
Oh, and there.
on the
okay.
ranch, it was their location lot. So we had the Fantasy Island set on there.
Oh,
Oh,
For a kid, I got to play
Ah.
and bike and ride and play
That's
laser
cool.
tag and all that stuff in the Fantasy Island set.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
They had the Old West town, and then they had the neighborhood towns, all
Oh.
centered around this big open green park area.
Mhm.
Is that
So
like
they could film-
what's behind Kyle right now? The
Yep,
picture
that's
of
the
the house.
one. I was going to
Yeah.
comment on
So
that.
all right. Well, I just wondered. So they all kind of look like that, like house to
Yeah.
house down a road.
Yeah, the actual Griswold house from Christmas Vacation is on that street.
Oh,
The
cool.
old Bewitched house is on that street. And little known fact, the Griswold house and Danny Glover's house in Lethal Weapon, same house.
That's cool.
Really? All right.
And it's another thing is too that the Seaver house in Growing Pains. If you watch Monster Squad, in the end when they're in the
Yep.
town square fighting the monsters, it's in the background. I always
Yep.
love it because I'm like, that's the Seaver house.
That was another one that Andre Gower,
Yes.
who is the one who actually went on to do Fathers and Sons with Merlin Olsen.
Mhm.
Him and I had this back and forth thing where we would constantly book things. He got Monster Squad and I didn't. So
Yeah.
we had a tit for tat going, but we were good friends, and
Oh,
I
that's
never
cool.
forgave him for that one. Because for a kid, how cool would that have been?
Oh,
to be in that
absolutely.
movie?
Yeah, absolutely. Even as an adult watching it, I still think it would be cool to be
Oh,
in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
movie.
absolutely.
Very cool. Yeah. So now you're on the set. Were there like so you had like Lethal Weapon? Any other series that you would shoot nearby that you would
Well,
kind of be able to kind of?
I don't remember which year it happened, but My Sister Sam with Pam
Mhm.
Dauber and
Yep.
Rebecca Schaefer
Mhm.
Came into the studio right next door to us.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
we got to know them very well. You know, you're literally working, the stages are not 8 feet away from each other.
yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
we were right there.
Yeah,
We got to know them very well.
that's
And
pretty cool.
unfortunately, not to get a little dark, but you know, Rebecca was killed by a stalker. And
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
that's how we all found out. Was we all, including her castmates and producers and crew, everybody showed up that morning and she didn't.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Insane.
Crazy.
And, you know,
Yeah.
we saw each other. I mean, we all started the day at either 8 or 9 o'clock. So you saw each other every morning as you were pulling into the parking lot. You said hi. You saw each other throughout the day. And so they finished filming My Sister Sam there. And when Growing Pains had its spinoff, Just the 10 of Us, they moved
Yes.
that in next door to us.
Oh,
So
cool.
that was awesome as well,
Yeah.
because first of all, Bill Kirkenbauer is one of
Yes.
the funniest human beings that has ever
Love that
lived.
character on the show.
And,
Lubbock was a great character.
He was great. His stand-up is hysterical, although he's you know, not exactly clean. He is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And we got to know all the kids and, you know, all of their crew. And that was actually why some of our crew rotated out. Some of
Okay.
them went over and joined them to kind of give the crew more experience with what we were trying to do. So
Oh.
those are the 2 main ones that came
That's
in
cool.
and worked next to us.
Yeah, I was always
So-
a fan of Just the 10 of Us. It was a good spinoff.
So Jeremy, so you're doing Growing Pains, and then
Mhm.
that comes to an inevitable end there. I'm not familiar with what you did after, so I'm
Mhm.
just asking you. So moving forward in your life, what happened right after that? Moving to what you're doing right now.
So when I got done with the show, I kept auditioning for a while, kept chasing it, and I still enjoyed doing what I was doing. I booked a few things here and there. I actually came within a hair of being a regular on Days of Our Lives.
Hmm.
I got called in I was still filming Growing Pains, but it was the last season and it was going to be going down. We knew that it was going to be done. So, or it was right after we went down, one of the two. But I went in and I read, and their casting director at the time basically hired me on the spot.
Yeah.
She was like, no,
That's cool.
she actually did the old sending people home and gave me the role.
Right.
The problem with that is you don't sign the contracts right away. And
Right.
stuff changes constantly. So 4 days later, before we ever get to sign the contracts, they decide they are not introducing this character at all. It's been scrapped.
Oh no.
Bummer.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So that was the close call, but I did a couple of TV movies, did a couple commercials, did a couple guest spots on different shows. And then I decided to take a step away so that I could go to college. That was a mistake. College didn't go very well for me, got injured, got a bad case of mono. It was not a great experience overall for me. But the door was open at that point, and I still had people anxious to work with me. And by the time I kind of came back from my sabbatical, the door was no longer open, and I really had to start working hard to get it to open again. So since then,
what was that window like? How quickly did that close on you? Like 4 years?
I took about 4 years off. I don't know how quickly it would have shut, but it was about 4 years where I just kind of
a normal college experience, 4-year window.
Except I only lasted 1 year at the college.
Well, so did I. I didn't even last that long, so that's good. You did better than I did. Okay, I'm just saying, 4-year window is what you were looking at.
Right.
Right.
So I decided to start coming back. I did a couple of, I've done a handful of independent films and projects. And in the process, I realized that, I'm going to need and want something that's a little more consistent on the paycheck. And I had grown up cooking with my grandmother. She had a restaurant that I would go up and work there during the summers when we were on hiatus from Growing Pains.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Which wasn't work for me. It was hanging out with grandma.
Right.
I always loved to cook, and I decided to go to culinary school. And I've always been passionate about that. So I became a chef as well and started doing catering, kind of learned some chops, studied in China, studied with Cordon Bleu, and then basically opened my own catering company. Got it really going well. And the 2008 crash happened. And needless to say, a catering chef or a catering menu is an easy line item to slash off when you're struggling.
Right, sure. Well, that's not on your end. I mean, that's just
no. It had nothing to do with me. It was just I mean, to give you an idea, because everything crashed right before the holidays. My holidays used to be 12 to 18 events between November and December, or between November and New Year's, and we dropped down to 1.
Yeah, sure. Right.
Yeah. It's rough.
So lost the company, had to shut it down and everything. Started freelancing, been doing that still, and just been acting wherever I can. I don't chase I don't chase the auditions regularly anymore.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not still considering doing that, but I've been, I have a lot of friends and a lot of people who still remember me, and I'll still get a script sent to me through my manager, or I'll still get, that kind of thing. And they'll say, hey, I got this role. I wrote it thinking about you. Would you consider coming and doing?
Yeah.
So, I do those kind of things.
That's
and
great.
Then also, I wrote a book with a very dear friend of mine, and it's kind of a dual biography, but we're in the process right now of having a screenplay adaptation made of it.
Oh, so much fun.
Nice.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Is the
when
book
we'll have the
available
first
now,
draft.
or is the book out?
The book is actually available. It's called When I Wished Upon a Star. And it's give you the short synopsis. My very dear friend Brandon Phillips was a wish kid.
Okay.
He was
Cool.
granted a wish by the Starlight Foundation, and out of everything, he wished to come to the set of Growing Pains to meet me.
Nice. Oh, wow. How
Now,
fantastic.
He was the only wish kid to want to come and meet me specifically. We had lots of people come through who wanted to see the show and be on the set. many that wanted to meet Kirk,
Of course.
but
Right.
he was the only one that specifically wanted to meet me. And it's basically just the story of our friendship.
Yeah.
That has been a 35-year journey at this point.
That's awesome.
I was gonna say
That
it's
is a great story.
it's bros for life after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're
How can you
like,
not be?
only that,
How can
he
you want to meet
was
me?
kind of a struggling student who had a learning disability, who had been told he would not survive to see 21 years old.
Mm.
And he credited coming to see me with realizing that, hey, if a little kid from Gina, Louisiana could, go to Hollywood and meet his
Yeah.
favorite stars, then maybe anything was possible.
Anything, right?
Absolutely.
100%.
He went on to become an A
100%.
student. Not only did he survive, he is a pediatric cardiologist treating children who have
Wow.
the same type of problems he
Jesus.
had.
Now that's
That is now
an amazing story right there.
That's the trifecta right there, Jeremy. You did
Right.
good. You did
Yeah,
And
good.
then-
absolutely.
Then he turned around and helped save me when I was deep in my alcoholism. He was very
Wow,
key in
Jesus.
helping me get recovery. And
That's awesome.
it's just, like I said, it's just a story of how our lives have intertwined over the years. And
And
Yeah.
that you were meant to connect, and
Yeah.
I could see why that would be a screenplay, because
That is a lot
That-
better story than a lot of stories I've heard. So that's absolutely
That's one way to put it.
yeah, it's
like a lot
Absolutely.
like cocaine, driving.
I mean, you
in
see a lot of these
limo looking
movies
at
about
homeless
people that are
yeah.
like, she had to wander through the woods for 40 days. And you're like, well, that's okay, but this is a really good story. Jim.
Yeah, it's a great story. That's an inspirational
Yeah.
story.
I love
So
that.
Wonderful.
yeah, no, it's available anywhere you can, you mostly have to order it now, but Amazon and any of that kind of stuff, you can get it. And we're also on, this is one of my favorite parts. We have an audiobook now, and you can get it on Glasshouse and Audible and just about any audio book platform.
Awesome.
But Max Adler, who I was talking about
Mhm.
from Glee, and who's going to be joining me at the Bedford Film Fest, he was our narrator.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
he did a phenomenal job. I'll tell you right now, if reading the book doesn't at least draw a tear, his performance will have you bawling. I mean, he
Oh.
was so great. I've told him,
Oh,
I don't care what A-lister you give me, no one could have done a better job or been more passionate about this project than Max was.
Beautiful.
So it's a great read, but it's also a really great listen if you happen to prefer the audiobook.
that's awesome. God, definitely got to search
Amazing.
it out for sure. It's a great story. Sounds
And
awesome.
then, so with that, I mean, which is great. I mean, that's an awesome story. But with the cooking, how does that transcend into what you're doing in the festival that's coming up?
Well, that's where I've been freelancing for a while for other caterers as a head chef. I decided I was not going to try and open my own, company again. It's more intensive than a lot of people think. If you're putting on a big, even if it's only 150, 200 people, that's a week and a half to 2 weeks of preparation for one event. That's just more effort than I want to put out at this point in my life. So I freelance as head chef for other people, let them deal with the headaches, and I just, cook their menu and knock it out. But I realized I still wanted to be able to cook my own things and do different stuff. So I teach these cooking party classes basically.
That's
And
cool.
it's 6 to 12 people. I go to your house, or they can come. I have kitchens that I rent. It's almost exclusively done in Southern Cal, because it makes, unless somebody's just completely loaded and wants to fly me out for a cooking class.
Sure.
Well, I was just thinking about booking you, but then I'm like,
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I've never done it because it's just be outrageously pricey to do, but I do it in the Southern California area, and we have a ball. I pick a theme, or more to the point, they pick a theme, whether it's a style of cuisine they want to learn, an ethnic cuisine, or whether they want, I've done 30-minute meals for moms, and I've done children's cooking parties where it's, minimal things that were like a favorite of the kids and showing them how they can cook it themselves. It's like a 5-hour class, 4-hour class. I teach about 4 hours. I teach them anywhere from 4 to 5 dishes in any style they want. And then whoever comes, whoever's the guest, gets to enjoy the food as I'm cooking it and gets to eat that too.
That's
So
cool.
Now, do you do that always in person, or do you do an online thing? Because I think I see you doing like some sort of online, at least YouTube or something, like some sort of course or something.
That's what I was
I
gonna ask.
generally,
No Food
I
Network
generally
show or
do it
anything?
in person. The online stuff I've been looking into and maybe doing some online instructional,
Yeah,
videos, channel or
Mhm.
whatever,
Sure.
but it's an incredibly oversaturated space
True.
on the internet right now.
True.
Right.
And it's
sure.
extremely hard to generate a decent enough following doing that when there are tons of people who are established over the last 5 to
Sure.
7 years, 10
Sure.
years.
You got to find
So-
that sort of hook that
Exactly.
makes it that draws them into it.
Right.
Like the
And I'm
band
not
or
trying
the
to create
30-minute
more
meals,
work
yeah.
for you here.
No.
Jeremy.
I understand. It's something-
I'm just saying,
No, it's something I've really looked at, but I really enjoy the one-on-one in-person part of it as well.
Sure.
And
Sure.
the online part of it, they're not getting, I mean, they could cook along with me,
Sure.
but at the
Right.
parties, they get to relax.
You get that
They have a
personal
glass of wine,
connection.
they have a martini, they have whatever they want,
Mhm.
and they get to actually try everything as I'm coming, as I'm cooking
Absolutely.
it. So
Absolutely.
And you enjoy it.
that's my favorite part. I
Yeah.
didn't realize I liked teaching, but I do. I really like, teaching
Good.
them the history of the dish if I know it well.
Yeah.
And, kind of the different techniques and how you could change it. And I enjoy the feedback and the one-on-one.
That's
Oh,
so
that's
cool.
awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
12
What
on one.
was
as it may
what was
be.
that one dish that your grandmother taught you that's your absolute favorite?
Yeah.
Honestly, it's my grandmother's meat sauce, and it's a very Americanized, it's not Americanized in its recipe, but it's just a ground beef pasta sauce.
Mm.
But she taught me her specific recipe.
Mm.
Everyone in my family loves it, and anybody else I cook it for just goes, "Holy cow, that's amazing!" I would never cook it for a real Italian. They'd laugh me out of the place.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But it's
it's
tradition.
grandma's.
You're passing it down.
It's
You're passing
tradition.
it down.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Now, one last thing. One thing I'm definitely curious about. So years later, we're talking. I think it was around 2000. The cast of Growing Pains reunited for
Mhm.
Growing Pains the movie, and then again, what is the year later for Return of the Seavers?
How was
that? 4 years later. Okay, even more so. Wow. How was that? How'd that come together?
It took a while to come together, actually. There was a lot of talk, a lot of discussions, a lot of back and forth with scripts, which we actors weren't really privy to. That was among the producers and the writers. But from the time I heard about the first one till the time it was in production was about 3 years, 3.5 years.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Wow.
So we knew it might be coming. We knew it would probably be happening, but I didn't get the green light until 2000.
Okay,
And then
yeah.
pretty much the same thing after it got good reviews and people really responded to it. They kept talking about doing another one, but again, about 3.5 years later,
Right.
we moved forward. But doing the first one was odd at first because I don't think any of us knew what to expect. I mean, we had all seen each other. It's not like we were completely out of each other's lives,
Right.
but we hadn't all been on set working together every day for quite a long time at that point. And the second we ended up all on set, everybody fell into their old routines.
That's
In
cool.
fact,
Oh, that's
Alan kicked it off by saying something incredibly snotty to Joanna. She gave it right back to him, and everybody just kind of, we're home.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Cool.
So, and then the second one, we knew it was going to work. We knew what it would be
Right.
like. We had just done this a few years before. We were all looking forward to it. And it was something that, again, we had a ball doing. We shot it in New Orleans. So we spent a lot of time going out to restaurants together in our off hours and getting ourselves way too fat, but it was worth it.
Oh yeah, that's the best part of any get together is the food.
Oh, heck
right?
yeah.
But that's cool because yeah, and I still see like Joanna Kern's name directing a lot of
Mhm.
episodes of shows nowadays and things like that. So it's always cool to kind of see where everybody's sort of branched out and done over the years.
Well,
But
JoJo's the hardest one to get a hold of or to see. I see her the least frequent because she's always directing something.
Working. Yeah.
She's such a talented director. She's always working. And generally speaking, she's in Canada or in Europe she's never here because she's always working.
Yeah.
So, but we all keep up in each other's lives. I mean, I see Tracy probably more often than anybody else. We do
That's awesome.
autograph signings and stuff together.
Oh,
We don't live
nice.
too far from each other, so we'll run into each other at the store.
Oh, that's great.
And then Kirk is still
Awesome.
a very good friend of mine. I mean, he's my brother. So we'll get together for dinner sometimes and just hang
That's
out.
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great to
That
hear.
doesn't always happen. It's like you go
Yeah.
to work it's like that was the job and you move on.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you stayed connected.
Right.
You really were a family, and not just with the actors, but with the crew and everybody. So
Right.
the experience was probably so much better than some other younger actors that maybe didn't have all that, or their parents
Right.
weren't
Yeah.
supportive. They were just like their kid was their meal ticket. Keep on working.
Right. Yeah.
Working and bringing in that money that you had control at that young age. If you were done, that you could walk away, and you had such a
Yeah.
great experience. And the story of from that beginning to what you're doing now is just really great.
It's a wonderful
I can't
story,
wait
yeah.
to read the book, and I
Yeah,
definitely want to
definitely.
see the movie.
Definitely gonna find the book. And
Thank you guys.
and
Hope you enjoy
then
it.
one last time, just we'll plug the Bedford Film Festival, International Film
Yes.
Festival coming up again.
Yep,
Which
coming
is
up, kicking off on June 28th in Bedford, Virginia. And you can
Excellent.
find it online for the tickets at Bedford International Film Fest, and on Facebook and Instagram and all the different sites, as well as I think it's an Eventbrite
Oh, nice. Yeah.
event, so you can get your tickets on there. But yeah, it's going to be a great time. The weekend's going to
Awesome.
be full of panels and screenings and Q&As, autograph signings, and of course, we're kicking it off with one of my cooking classes.
So much fun.
That'll
Sounds
be
great.
awesome.
Oh, sounds great. So
Jeremy,
yeah, if you're
thank
definitely
you,
able to go,
yeah.
have a lot. That sounds like it's gonna be a
Jeremy,
lot of
next
fun.
time you're on here, tell us what you cooked. Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'd
I
love
can
to have
make
you back.
I can make your mouths water now. We're doing a sweet shrimp poached in olive oil, mushroom and asparagus risotto,
Oh,
a
risotto.
Tuscan sweet sausage soup with kale and sun-dried tomato, and then a pan-fried braciole.
Wow. All
right.
right.
That's it.
Well,
Gotta get tickets.
Well,
Let's go.
Jeremy, now you don't have
Just
to
for
come
that.
back. Thanks a lot.
But I would have been happy with grandma's sauce. So
Yeah.
No,
Right.
right.
Can I get some of their grandma sauce?
No,
that'd
we
be great.
absolutely appreciate your
Yeah.
time here, sir.
Love it.
And
Thanks so much.
I was so
Truly.
I'm honored to hear your story because that
Yes.
is great.
Awesome story. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Jeremy, thank you.
Definitely
Much
look
appreciated.
forward to
Thank
talking
you
to you
guys for
again.
having me on. This was fun.
Awesome. We'll talk
Okay.
with you soon.
Have fun at the festival.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And